Elara loved the quiet hum of the library after the last patron had departed. It was a sound as gentle as the rustle of turning pages, as comforting as the soft sigh of a well-loved armchair. Outside, the twilight deepened over Oakhaven, painting the ancient oak trees that gave the town its name in shades of lavender and charcoal. Inside, Elara moved through the hushed aisles, a soft lamplight trailing her like a faithful companion, checking returned books, straightening wayward spines, and ensuring every story was tucked safely into its proper place. She was Elara Vance, a woman who found her truest self amidst the scent of aging paper and the silent promise of untold narratives. Her fingers, long and slender, were accustomed to the delicate touch of brittle pages and the smooth glide of a book's cover. Her hair, the color of burnished copper, was usually pulled back in a practical braid, but a few rebellious tendrils always escaped to frame a face that held both a librarian's serene concentration and a dreamer's soft wonder. The Oakhaven Public Library wasn't just a building, it was a sanctuary. Built in the late 1800s, its high, arched windows overlooked a small, meticulously kept rose garden, and its interior boasted dark oak shelving that reached to the heavens, ornate carved banisters leading to the second-floor stacks, and a grand, albeit slightly creaky, staircase that seemed to whisper tales of generations past. Elara had worked here for 5 years, and in that time it had become more than just her workplace. It was her heart's quiet dwelling. Tonight, as she completed her rounds, a peculiar sensation settled over her. It wasn't unpleasant, merely different. A subtle ripple in the otherwise placid air. She paused in the fiction section, her gaze drifting over the familiar titles. Everything seemed in order. No forgotten scarves on chairs, no half-eaten apples tucked between dictionaries. Yet, the feeling persisted, a faint, almost imperceptible hum beneath the surface of the usual library quiet. She continued, past the children's corner with its vibrant murals and miniature chairs, through the sunlit, now moonlight-dappled, reading room, and finally towards the local history archives at the very back. This was her favorite part of the library, a dimly lit, often overlooked section where the town's secrets and stories slumbered in dusty tomes and fragile handwritten letters. It smelled of parchment and dried flowers, a scent that always made Elara feel as though she was stepping back in time. As she pushed open the heavy oak door to the archives, the subtle hum intensified. It wasn't a sound, not precisely, but more like a vibration in the air, a gentle thrum against her skin. The air in the archives felt cooler than the rest of the library, and a faint, sweet aroma, like old wood and something vaguely botanical, lingered. Her eyes, accustomed to the dim light, scanned the tightly packed shelves. Rows upon rows of bound newspapers, municipal records, family histories, and personal journals. The archive was usually locked, accessible only by request, and Elara was certain she had been the last person in here that afternoon, retrieving a historical map for a local historian. A soft, almost inaudible, tap, tap, tap echoed from deeper within the stacks. Elara froze. Her heart gave a little lurch, not of fear, but of startled curiosity. The library was empty. She was certain of it. She took a slow, deliberate breath, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. It wasn't a regular tap, more like something shifting, perhaps a branch scraping against a window, but there were no windows this deep in the archives. Taking a small antique oil lamp from a nearby desk, she preferred its warm glow to the harsh overhead fluorescence. Elara began to move cautiously between the towering shelves. The silence that followed the tapping was profound, broken only by the soft brush of her sensible shoes against the worn carpet. She passed shelves filled with Oakhaven's pioneer records, then the ledgers of long-defunct local businesses. The botanical scent grew stronger. It reminded her vaguely of dried lavender and something else, something sharper, like cedar. And then she saw it. On a low, rarely visited shelf, nestled between a thick volume on Oakhaven's flora and fauna and a collection of Old Town Council minutes, was a small, leather-bound book. It wasn't just any book. It was exquisitely crafted, with intricate tooling on its cover and a clasp of tarnished silver. It looked utterly out of place amongst the utilitarian brown and gray spines surrounding it. But it wasn't just the book itself that caught her attention. Tucked beneath it, peeking out from under its heavy cover, was a small, folded piece of paper. Elara's fingers trembled ever so slightly as she reached for it. The paper was thick, creamy parchment, and it felt cool beneath her touch. She carefully unfolded it. It wasn't a note, not in the traditional sense. It was a delicate, intricate sketch of a single oak leaf, rendered in such exquisite detail that she could almost feel the texture of its veins. Beneath the leaf, in elegant, flowing script, were just 2 words. Underneath the old. Nyai, how. Elara frowned, her brow furrowing in concentration. Underneath the old? What did that mean? And who had left it? More importantly, when? She had been the only one in the archives all day. She looked at the small leather-bound book. It had no title on its spine, but the cover, once she held it in the lamplight, revealed a subtle, embossed pattern of interlocking leaves and branches. It felt ancient, yet surprisingly well-preserved. With a growing sense of wonder, Elara carefully opened the book. It wasn't a printed volume. It was a journal, its pages filled with the same elegant script as the note. The ink was faded in places, but the handwriting was clear, precise, and undeniably beautiful. The first entry was dated over 100 years ago. It seemed to be a nature journal, filled with observations of local flora and fauna, detailed sketches of birds and insects, and poetic musings on the changing seasons in Oakhaven. But this wasn't what had been left for her. This was merely the vessel. The real message was the folded paper. Underneath the old. And so? Elara carefully placed the journal back on the shelf, tucking the note back beneath it exactly as she had found it. The feeling of the archive being different had intensified, becoming less a hum and more a gentle presence. She felt as though she wasn't alone, not in a scary way, but in an ethereal, almost magical sense. She spent the next hour walking the archives again, moving slowly, searching for anything else out of place, any other whisper. But there was nothing. The archives settled back into their familiar, quiet slumber. Elara eventually locked up the library, the heavy oak door thudding shut behind her with a sound that echoed the finality of the day. But as she stepped out into the cool Oakhaven night, the image of the oak leaf sketch and the enigmatic words underneath the oldie pulsed in her mind. The next morning, Elara arrived at the library even earlier than usual. The sun was just beginning to warm the rose garden, painting the petals with dewdrops that sparkled like tiny jewels. She made a pot of strong Earl Grey tea, its bergamot scent mingling pleasantly with the library's old book aroma, and then she headed straight for the archives. The small leather-bound journal was still there, nestled between its larger, more mundane neighbors. And beneath it, the folded parchment. She retrieved it, her heart giving a little flutter of anticipation. The note was unchanged. Underneath the old. When I can. She walked through the archives, her gaze sweeping over the shelves, trying to interpret the cryptic message. Underneath the old? The old books? The old shelves? The old building itself? Her eyes landed on the grand carved banister of the main staircase, visible from the archive doorway. It was easily the oldest piece of furniture in the library, dating back to its original construction. She remembered a local legend about a hidden compartment somewhere within the library's original structure, a place where the town's founders had supposedly stashed important documents. Could it be? A spark of excitement, rare and exhilarating for the usually calm librarian, ignited within her. She moved out of the archives, through the main reading room, and approached the staircase. Her fingers traced the smooth, worn wood of the banister, feeling the intricate carvings of oak leaves and acorns that adorned it. She ran her hand along the underside of the banister where the wood was darkest and oldest, feeling for any seam, any give. Nothing. She moved to the newel post, the sturdy pillar at the foot of the stairs, its top carved into a magnificent, sprawling oak tree. She ran her fingers over the gnarled trunk, then down its base, where it met the floor. Still nothing. Elara sighed, a small puff of disappointment escaping her lips. Perhaps she was overthinking it. Perhaps underneath the old was just a poetic flourish, or referred to something else entirely. Just as she was about to give up, her gaze fell upon the very bottom step of the staircase. It was a thick slab of dark, aged wood, worn smooth by countless footsteps over more than a century. Underneath, the old. What if it meant literally underneath the oldest part of the structure she could access? She knelt, ignoring the dust bunnies that scurried away from her approach. Her fingers probed the underside of the bottom step, where the wood met the floorboards. It was dark, a tight space, but her fingertips brushed against something. Not wood. Something smooth and cool. With effort, she managed to hook a finger around it and pull. A small, shallow drawer, no more than 6 inches wide and 2 inches deep, slid out with a soft kantung. It was so cleverly concealed, so perfectly flush with the step, that it was virtually invisible unless one knew precisely where to look. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was another piece of parchment. This one was folded even more carefully, and tucked beneath a delicate silver thimble, etched with an intricate pattern of tiny leaves. Elara's breath hitched. This was it. This was the next whisper. She carefully extracted the parchment, her heart thrumming with a delightful blend of apprehension and anticipation. The thimble, cool and smooth, remained in the drawer. She unfolded the paper. This time, it wasn't a sketch. It was a single line of elegant script, the same hand as before. Look to the light where the stories rest. Ad. Elara stared at the words, a slow smile spreading across her face. Look to the light where the stories rest. This was getting delightfully intriguing. Where the stories rest immediately suggested the books, of course. But why lighting? The windows? The lamps? She thought of the main reading room, with its grand arched windows that let in streams of morning sunlight. She thought of the tall leaded glass windows in the children's section, depicting whimsical scenes. But then her gaze fell upon the library's most distinctive feature, the enormous, circular stained glass window above the main entrance. It depicted a sprawling oak tree, its branches reaching towards a radiant sun, its roots delving deep into rich, fertile soil. It was a masterpiece, casting kaleidoscopic patterns of color across the entrance hall on sunny days. And directly beneath that window, against the wall, was a beautifully carved wooden bench. It was the designated new arrivals section, where freshly catalogued books awaited their first readers. Look to the light, where the stories rest. Aye? Elara felt a thrill of discovery. She walked towards the entrance, her eyes fixed on the magnificent stained glass window, then drifting down to the bench beneath it. The bench itself was old, probably as old as the library, its wood smooth and polished from countless hands and countless hours of reading. She approached it, her anticipation building. She ran her hand along the backrest, then the seat. Nothing. She knelt, just as she had at the staircase, and ran her fingers along the underside of the bench. Her fingers brushed against something. Another small indentation, a narrow slot. This time, she didn't have to pull. The slot was open, and tucked inside was a small, perfectly folded square of parchment. And this time, it wasn't alone. Beside it, tucked into the slot, was a single, fresh, vibrant green oak leaf, still dewy, as if it had only just been plucked. Elara carefully retrieved the parchment and the leaf. The leaf felt cool and alive in her palm, a stark contrast to the faded paper. She unfolded the parchment. This time the message was longer, and her heart skipped a beat as she read it. Whispers of the past. They often lead us to the present. You seek the hidden, and in doing so, you reveal yourself. Look to the old oak's heart, where silence speaks. When you won. Elara gasped softly. You seek the hidden, and in doing so, you reveal yourself. This wasn't just a treasure hunt, it was a conversation. Someone was watching her, or at least observing her actions, knowing she would follow the clues. And the inclusion of the fresh oak leaf, it felt personal. Look to the old oak's heart where silence speaks. Vianwari. This was the most enigmatic clue yet. The old oak's heart. Oak Haven was full of old oaks. There was the enormous centenarian oak in the town square, the one the library's window depicted. There were the ancient trees lining the riverbank. And, of course, the oak motif was everywhere in the library itself. But where silence speaks? That brought her back to the library. Where was the heart of the library? The archive, perhaps? Or perhaps the very center of the main reading room beneath the highest ceiling. Elara spent the rest of the morning in a delicious state of distracted enchantment. She helped patrons, checked out books, and answered questions, all while her mind buzzed with the latest clue. She kept the fresh oak leaf tucked into her pocket, its cool presence a constant reminder of the gentle mystery unfolding around her. She thought about the person leaving these whispers. They had to know the library intimately. They had to know its hidden nooks and crannies, its secret legends. And they had to be observant, perhaps even watching her. The thought sent a pleasant shiver down her spine. It wasn't menacing, it was intriguing, like a secret admirer, but for her quiet, intellectual soul. When her lunch break arrived, Elara found herself drawn back to the archives. The small leather-bound journal was still there. She pulled it out, turning it over in her hands. It was old, yes, but not ancient enough to be the gold oak's heart. The journal itself wasn't the clue, but perhaps its contents. She opened it to a random page. It was a detailed sketch of a particular type of moss, followed by an entry about its preferred habitat, clinging to the north-facing roots of the oldest oaks, where the light is dappled and the air is ever damp. Elara read through a few more pages. The journal was filled with such observations, meticulous and loving. The author clearly had a profound connection to the natural world of Oakhaven. She remembered the scent in the archives the previous night, old wood, dried flowers, and something vaguely botanical. That botanical scent, she realized, was the scent of this journal, and perhaps the scent of its author. Look to the old oak's heart, where silence speaks. Grin. What if the old oak's heart wasn't a specific location, but referred to something more metaphorical? The essence of Oakhaven? Or perhaps, the heart of the library's oak, as depicted in the stained glass window. She returned to the main entrance, standing beneath the grand stained glass window once more. The oak tree within the glass was massive, its trunk thick and gnarled. Her gaze traveled from its colorful canopy down to its roots, depicted as dark, strong lines anchoring it to the earth. And at the very base of the window, forming the ground from which the oak grew, was a narrow, dark wooden panel. It was part of the original structure, easily overlooked, blending into the wall beneath the vibrant glass. Where silence speaks. Dai? Elara remembered a tiny, almost imperceptible knot in that panel, a dark spot that resembled a knothole. She had often wondered if it was a natural flaw in the wood or something intentional. She approached the panel, her heart quickening. She pressed her finger gently against the knothole. It wasn't a knot. It was a perfectly round, smooth depression, just large enough for her fingertip. And as she pressed, she felt a slight give. A small, almost imperceptible click echoed in the quiet hall. And then, a section of the panel, about 6 inches square, slid inward with a soft whisper of old wood against old wood. Inside, nestled in the darkness, was a small, exquisitely carved wooden box. It was made of dark, polished oak, and its surface was smooth and cool beneath her touch. It had no clasp, no lock, just a seamless, almost invisible lid. Elara carefully lifted the box out, her hands trembling with a mixture of awe and excitement. This felt significant. This felt like the heart of the mystery. She settled herself on the new arrivals bench, directly beneath the stained glass window. The afternoon sun, though muted by the colored glass, still cast warm, shifting patterns over her lap as she held the box. She gently lifted the lid. Inside, resting on a bed of soft, dried moss, was another piece of parchment. But this time, it wasn't alone. Beside it lay a small, intricately carved wooden bird, a tiny wren, its wings delicately spread as if caught mid-flight. Its eyes were 2 minuscule beads of obsidian, gleaming with a lifelike intensity. And beside the wren, a single, perfectly preserved acorn. Elara's breath caught in her throat. The craftsmanship of the wren was breathtaking. It felt so alive in her palm, so real. And the acorn, smooth and cool, felt like a promise. She carefully picked up the parchment. The same elegant script, but this message was longer, more personal than the others. Tito, the keeper of forgotten stories, the guardian of silent whispers. You have followed the path of the unseen, found beauty in the overlooked, and listened with your heart to the quiet voices of this place. Your curiosity is a light in the shadows, and your presence is a gentle melody in the hallowed halls you tend. Dear John, these whispers are not meant to disturb, but to connect. To reach out to another who understands the language of old wood and the scent of turning pages. The wren sings its song in secret places, the acorn holds the promise of a forest. And perhaps, a shared journey begins with a single whispered word. When? If you wish to know more of these whispers, to uncover the source of these small gifts, then leave a sign. A simple white rose, placed on the bench where the new stories rest, at precisely sunset tomorrow evening. I will understand. Until then, may the quiet hum of the library keep you company. Elara read the note twice, then a third time, her cheeks flushing with a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun streaming through the window. To the keeper of forgotten stories, the guardian of silent whispers. The words resonated deep within her, a recognition of her deepest self. And then, the invitation, leave a sign. A simple white rose, placed on the bench where the new stories rest, at precisely sunset tomorrow evening. Oh, a thrill, both exhilarating and slightly daunting, coursed through her. Someone saw her. Someone understood her. Someone was reaching out in this beautifully elaborate, wonderfully charming way. She thought of the gentle taps, the botanical scent, the exquisite sketches, the perfectly carved wren. This wasn't a prank. This was thoughtful, sincere, and utterly captivating. Her heart felt lighter than it had in years. A quiet hum indeed. It felt like her own heart was now humming in time with the libraries. Elara spent the rest of the day in a haze of pleasant anticipation. She kept the wooden wren and the acorn carefully tucked away in the carved oak box, which she then placed discreetly in her office drawer. The fresh oak leaf was still in her pocket, a constant, tangible reminder of the day's magic. She knew without a shadow of a doubt that she would leave the white rose. The idea of meeting the person behind these whispers filled her with a nervous excitement she hadn't felt in a very long time. As the library closed for the evening and the last patron shuffled out, Elara walked through the quiet aisles, her steps lighter than usual. She paused by the new arrival's bench, running her hand along its smooth surface. Tomorrow, a white rose. She made her way back to the archives, feeling a renewed sense of connection to this part of the library. The small leather-bound journal was still there. She pulled it out, and this time, she didn't just glance at a random page. She opened it to the very first entry. The journal began not with a date, but with a quote. "The earth has music for those who listen." It was followed by a dedication, written in the same elegant hand. For my dearest Elara, that she might always find the unseen beauty. Elara's eyes widened. Her name. Not the librarian's name, but her name. But the journal was over 100 years old. Could it be a coincidence? Or was there another Elara, long ago connected to this mysterious author? She felt a prickle of goosebumps on her arms. This mystery was deeper, more personal than she could have imagined. The journal itself was a whisper from the past, woven into the present. The author of the journal, she realized, must have been someone who lived and breathed the Oakhaven landscape, someone with an artist's eye and a poet's soul. And the person leaving the whispers now, the one who knew of this journal, shared that same sensibility. As she closed the library for the night, the town's ancient oak trees stood sentinel under the deepening velvet sky. Elara looked up at their sprawling branches, feeling a kinship with their silent wisdom. She wondered if they too held whispers beneath their gnarled bark, waiting for someone to listen. She walked home, the cool night air a refreshing balm against her flushed cheeks. The familiar path seemed imbued with a new sense of possibility. The mundane had become magical, the solitary had become shared. Tomorrow, at sunset, a white rose. And perhaps, a face to match the whispers. The quiet hum of the library, of the town, of her own heart, had now been joined by a gentle, expectant melody. The story she knew was just beginning to unfold. She couldn't wait to turn the page. She couldn't wait to turn the page. Amelia's walk home was slower than usual, not because of fatigue, but because she was savoring every step. Her mind replayed the last note, the promise of a white rose, a sunset. The world felt sharper, colors more vibrant, sounds richer. The air carried the scent of late summer jasmine and the promise of autumn crispness, but tonight, it also held a scent of a possibility. She pictured the library at sunset, the golden light filtering through the tall windows, dust motes dancing like tiny sprites. Who would be there? A librarian? A teacher? A quiet artist? Her imagination, usually so grounded in the stories she catalogued, now soared unfettered. She allowed herself to dream, a luxury she rarely indulged in with such abandon. Once inside her cozy cottage, the familiar scent of old books and chamomile tea usually brought a calming comfort. Tonight, it felt like a prelude. She brewed a cup, but her hands trembled slightly as she poured. Sleep would be a challenge, she knew. Her thoughts buzzed like trapped bees, all centered on tomorrow. She tried to list the eligible bachelors of Havenwood in her mind. Mr. Henderson, the gruff but kind hardware store owner. Young Thomas, the baker's apprentice, far too young. Old Mr. Abernathy, sweet but a widower twice over. None of them fit the gentle, thoughtful voice of the notes. This person was an enigma, a kindred spirit born of ink and paper. A thrilling, terrifying thought. She spent the evening rereading the notes, tracing the elegant script with a fingertip. Each word, each turn of phrase, resonated with her own quiet sensibilities. A universe held within pages, the quiet symphony of shared thought, a silent conversation across time and space. These weren't just words, they were echoes of her own soul. This was more than a crush. It was a recognition, a feeling of coming home to a place she hadn't known she was looking for. The next morning dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for a momentous occasion. Amelia woke earlier than usual, a lightness in her chest she hadn't felt since childhood Christmases. She went through her morning routine with an absent-minded grace, her mind already fast-forwarding to sunset. At the library, the usual rhythm of shelving, cataloging, and assisting patrons felt both comforting and excruciatingly slow. Mrs. Gable from the garden club wanted books on rare orchids. Young Timmy needed help finding a dinosaur book. Each request was met with Amelia's usual calm efficiency, but beneath it, a current of excitement hummed. She found herself stealing glances at every male patron who entered, trying to match their faces to the eloquent words. Was it Mr. Peterson, the quiet history buff who always returned his books precisely on time? Or perhaps the new artist who'd moved into town a few months ago, whose sketchbook Amelia had once glimpsed filled with intricate botanical drawings. Her heart gave a little flutter each time, only to settle when the person spoke or moved in a way that didn't quite fit the imagined cadence of her secret correspondent. By late afternoon, the library began to quiet down. The sun, a warm orange orb, dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors. Amelia felt a delicious mix of terror and elation. Her hands were clammy, her stomach a nest of butterflies. She tidied her desk with meticulous care, straightened a stack of overdue notices, and checked her reflection in the small mirror she kept tucked inside a drawer. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with anticipation. She had chosen a simple dress, a soft cornflower blue that brought out the color of her eyes and let her hair fall in loose waves around her shoulders. She wanted to look like herself, only a slightly more radiant version. The time finally came. 5 minutes before sunset. Amelia took a deep breath, her heart thrumming against her ribs. She walked through the main reading room, her gaze sweeping over the empty tables, the towering shelves. And then she saw him. He was standing near the large bay window that overlooked the town square, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. In his hand, held with a gentle reverence, was a single pristine white rose. He wasn't looking at her, but out the window, his profile etched against the warm glow. He was taller than she'd imagined, with a kind of quiet strength in his posture. His hair was a rich, dark brown, falling a little over his forehead, and his clothes were simple but well worn, a soft linen shirt and dark trousers. There was an air of thoughtful contemplation about him, a stillness that immediately felt familiar. Amelia's breath hitched. She felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of rightness that settled deep in her bones. This was him. She knew it instinctively. She took another slow breath, gathering her courage, and stepped forward. "Hello," she said, her voice a little softer than usual. He turned and his eyes, a warm hazel, met hers. A shy smile touched his lips, transforming his features, making them approachable and wonderfully kind. His gaze was gentle, a little hesitant, but also brimming with a quiet warmth that mirrored her own. "Hello, Amelia," he replied, his voice a low melodic rumble, just as she'd imagined it. It carried the warmth of autumn leaves and the soothing cadence of a story being read aloud. "I believe this is for you." He extended the white rose, its petals unfurling in delicate perfection. Amelia took it, her fingers brushing his lightly. The contact sent a tiny jolt through her, a spark of connection that was both unexpected and welcome. "Thank you," she managed, her voice still a whisper. She brought the rose to her nose, inhaling its delicate, sweet fragrance. "It's beautiful. It reminded me of the clarity of your notes," he said, his smile widening slightly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Pure and thoughtful." A blush crept up Amelia's neck. "And yours? Your words felt like finding a missing piece of a puzzle I didn't even know I was trying to solve." She paused, then, feeling a little braver, asked, "So, who are you? I feel like I know you, and yet—" He chuckled softly. "My apologies for the prolonged mystery. It started as a whim, a quiet way to connect, and then it became something I looked forward to every day." He extended a hand. "Elias Thorne. I'm a local historian, or rather, an enthusiastic amateur. I spend a lot of time in archives, piecing together the stories of Havenwood, and apparently, leaving cryptic notes in library books." Amelia took his hand, her palm fitting perfectly into his. "Amelia Vance. And I'm the librarian who fell head over heels for the anonymous notes." She laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that surprised even herself. "It's wonderful to finally meet you, Elias." "The pleasure, Amelia, is entirely mine," he said, his gaze lingering on hers. "You're even more charming in person than I imagined from your elegant script." They stood there for a moment, the silence comfortable, punctuated only by the gentle ticking of the library clock and the distant sounds of the town winding down for the evening. The golden light softened, painting the scene in hues of apricot and rose. "So," Amelia began, feeling a little less nervous now that the initial hurdle was cleared. "A historian. That makes perfect sense. Your notes always had such a wonderful sense of depth, a connection to the past. And your recommendations always led me to stories that felt timeless," Elias responded, his eyes sparkling. "I often wondered if you knew exactly what I needed to read, even before I did." "Perhaps I did," Amelia admitted, a playful glint in her eyes. "There's a certain intuition that comes with being surrounded by so many narratives." She gestured around the quiet library. "This place, it feels like a sanctuary, doesn't it? A place where time bends and every voice, past and present, can be heard." "It does," Elias agreed, his gaze sweeping over the shelves with an almost reverent appreciation. "And you, Amelia, are its guardian, its keeper of stories." His words warmed her, settling a deep contentment within her. They began to walk slowly through the library, their footsteps soft on the carpeted aisles. They talked about books, of course, their favorite authors, the characters they loved, the stories that had shaped them. Elias spoke with a quiet passion about Havenwood's founding families, the forgotten industries, the small, poignant details that brought history to life. Amelia shared her joy in connecting people with the perfect book, the thrill of seeing a child's face light up at a new adventure, or an older patron finding comfort in a familiar tale. "I found your first note in the secret garden," Amelia recounted, a smile playing on her lips. "I remember thinking it was so perfectly placed, hidden amongst the pages of a story about discovery and quiet magic." Elias chuckled. "A deliberate choice, I assure you. It felt fitting, and when you replied, I confess, I practically haunted the library for days, waiting for your next installment." "Me too," Amelia exclaimed, her eyes wide. "I was so worried you wouldn't write back. It felt like such a daring thing to do, to leave a note for a complete stranger." "But not a complete stranger, was it?" Elias said, stopping by a shelf filled with classic literature. He turned to face her, his expression gentle. We were already connected in a way, through the books, through the shared appreciation for words and the worlds they create. He was right. It wasn't a sudden, jarring meeting, but a natural progression, a gentle unfolding of a connection that had already begun in whispers and ink. As they talked, Amelia noticed the small details about Elias that charmed her. The way he would sometimes run a hand through his hair when deep in thought, the faint scent of old paper, and something subtly woodsy that clung to him, the genuine warmth in his smile that reached his eyes. I usually go home and make myself a cup of tea after the library closes, Amelia said, glancing at the darkening windows. But tonight, I don't think I'm ready for the conversation to end. Elias's face lit up. Nor I. Would you perhaps allow me to treat you to dinner? There's a charming little bistro on Main Street that does a wonderful seasonal soup. Or if you prefer, we could just walk and talk. Dinner sounds lovely, Amelia replied, a warmth spreading through her chest. The seasonal soup sounds perfect. They walked out of the library together, the white rose still clutched gently in Amelia's hand. The air was cooler now, carrying the crisp promise of autumn. The streetlights flickered on, casting soft pools of light on the cobblestones. Havenwood, usually a quiet town, seemed to hum with a gentle energy, reflecting the quiet joy that bloomed within Amelia. At the bistro, a cozy place with checkered tablecloths and the scent of herbs and roasted vegetables, they settled into a quiet corner table. The conversation flowed easily, effortlessly. They discovered a shared love for obscure poets, a mutual exasperation with overly dramatic plot twists, and a similar outlook on life, a quiet appreciation for beauty in small things, a reverence for history, and a belief in the power of stories. I've always loved the idea that every building, every stone in this town has a story, Elias mused, stirring his soup. And the library, in a way, is the heart of it all. It's where all those stories are collected, preserved, shared. And where new ones begin, Amelia added, meeting his gaze across the table. Her heart gave a happy little skip. He smiled, a genuine open smile that made her feel instantly at ease. Indeed, new ones indeed. As the evening deepened, they talked about their lives, their dreams. Elias spoke of his passion for documenting forgotten local lore, of hoping to eventually publish a collection of Havenwood's untold tales. Amelia shared her quiet ambition to curate a special collection of regional authors, to make the library a true hub for local literary talent. Their individual passions intertwined, revealing even more common ground. There was a moment as Elias was describing a particularly amusing anecdote about a town founder who tried to grow pineapples in Havenwood's less than tropical climate, when Amelia found herself simply watching him. The way his eyes sparkled when he was animated, the gentle curve of his lips, the earnestness in his expression. She felt a profound sense of peace, a feeling of having found something she hadn't even realized she was missing. It wasn't just the words he spoke, but the quiet strength and genuine kindness that emanated from him. When the meal was finished, they lingered over tea, reluctant to break the spell of their first meeting. The bistro slowly emptied, leaving them in their quiet corner, bathed in the soft glow of the hanging lamps. I should walk you home, Elias offered, his voice a little softer now, as if acknowledging the lateness of the hour and the intimacy of their lingering conversation. Amelia nodded, a little regretful that the evening was drawing to a close, but also filled with a new kind of anticipation. The walk back to her cottage was filled with a comfortable silence, punctuated by occasional comments about the starry sky or the quiet charm of the lamplit streets. At her doorstep, under the soft glow of her porch light, Elias turned to her. Amelia, he began, his voice a little hesitant. This evening, it was everything I hoped for, and more. Me too, Elias, she confessed, her gaze meeting his. It felt like coming home. He reached out, gently taking her hand, the white rose still nestled between her fingers. His touch was warm, reassuring. I would very much like to continue this conversation, Amelia. Perhaps tomorrow, if you're free. Amelia's heart soared. I would like that very much, Elias. He smiled, a slow, gentle smile that sent a shiver of delight down her spine. Good night, Amelia. Good night, Elias. He released her hand, and Amelia watched as he walked down her garden path, turning once to offer a final lingering smile before disappearing into the shadows of the street. Inside her cottage, the silence was no longer empty, but filled with the echo of his voice, the warmth of his smile. She placed the white rose in a small vase on her bedside table, its delicate beauty a tangible reminder of the magical evening. She felt light, joyful, and utterly, wonderfully hopeful. The story, she knew, had truly just begun. And she couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. She drifted off to sleep with a smile playing on her lips, the scent of the rose a gentle lullaby. Dreams, soft and shimmering, filled her night, laughter echoing through a sun-dappled garden, hands brushing in the twilight, the comforting weight of a shared silence. When the morning sun finally streamed through her cottage window, painting the room in hues of soft gold, Elara awoke with a lightness she hadn't felt in years. Her eyes immediately sought the bedside table. The white rose, unfurling slightly in the morning light, looked even more beautiful. Its petals, pristine and delicate, seemed to hold the magic of the previous night. She reached out, her fingers tracing the velvety edge of a single petal, and a warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't just a flower. It was a promise, a tangible memory of a connection that felt destined. She spent the morning in a delicious haze of anticipation. The simple act of making tea felt infused with a new joy. She hummed a tuneless melody as she watered her indoor plants, her gaze often drifting to the rose. Was it too soon to hope? Was it foolish to feel so utterly captivated after just one evening? Perhaps. But her heart, usually a quiet resident in her chest, was singing a vibrant, insistent song. Elara was a botanist, her days spent tending to the vibrant life within her greenhouse, and guiding the growth of delicate specimens in her village's small but beloved botanical garden. Her life was one of quiet beauty, of nurturing growth, and understanding the intricate language of nature. She loved her work deeply, finding solace and purpose in the green world. Yet, Liam had brought a different kind of vibrant growth into her carefully tended existence, one that was entirely new and exhilarating. By noon, a gentle restlessness had begun to settle. She found herself glancing at her phone more often than usual, a tiny flutter of nerves mixing with her hope. Would he call? Would he text? She hadn't given him her number, but he had seemed so resourceful. She chided herself for being so impatient, for allowing her imagination to run wild. She decided to busy herself, to ground her soaring thoughts in the familiar rhythm of her work. She walked to the botanical garden, the crisp autumn air a welcome balm. The familiar scent of damp earth and blooming late-season flowers usually calmed her completely, but today, even amidst the tranquil beauty, a part of her felt suspended, waiting. She pruned a climbing rose, its thorns a sharp contrast to the soft petals of the one waiting on her bedside table, and found her thoughts drifting back to his eyes, the way they crinkled at the corners when he smiled. As she was preparing to leave the garden for the day, a small, unassuming package lay on the bench outside her office door. It was wrapped in simple brown paper, tied with a thin twine. Curiously, she picked it up. There was no name, no address, just a small, elegant wax seal, a subtle impression of a single unfurling leaf. Her heart gave a hopeful leap. Inside, nestled amongst tissue paper, was a small, beautifully bound book. Its cover was a deep forest green, embossed with delicate silver foliage. It was a collection of poems about nature, specifically about the resilience and beauty of wild flora. Tucked inside the front cover, a single dried forget-me-not pressed carefully between the pages, was a card. Her name, Elara, was written in a strong, elegant hand. "Good morning, Elara. I hope this finds you well. I thought of you when I saw this, and remembered your eyes lighting up when you spoke of the language of flowers. Perhaps these words can offer a quiet companion until we can speak again. I'd love to hear your thoughts on them, and perhaps on other things. Over coffee tomorrow morning. Say 10 o'clock, at the Morning Glory Cafe. If that suits you, just wear the scarf. You had on light. I'll be..." A delighted laugh bubbled up from her throat, echoing softly in the quiet garden. A scarf. He remembered the scarf. It was a simple emerald green wool scarf, one she often wore. It was so perfectly Liam, thoughtful, observant, and with just a touch of charming mystery in the way he proposed their next meeting. Not a phone number, not a direct confirmation, but a subtle, romantic gesture. It was even better than a text message. She clasped the book to her chest, feeling a warmth spread through her. Tomorrow, 10 o'clock. She couldn't wait. The next morning, Elara woke early, a nervous flutter in her stomach that was entirely pleasant. She chose her outfit carefully, making sure the emerald scarf was prominently displayed. At 9:50 a.m., she was already sitting at a small table near the window of the Morning Glory Cafe, a cup of herbal tea steaming in front of her. The cafe was bustling with the gentle hum of morning patrons, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with warm pastries. Her gaze was fixed on the street, her heart quickening with every new person who walked past the window. Then, she saw him. He was walking with a relaxed gait, his hands tucked into his pockets, a faint smile already on his lips as his eyes scanned the street. He spotted her almost immediately, his smile widening, and Elara felt a blush creep up her neck. He looked even more handsome in the daylight, dressed in a simple dark blue sweater that made his eyes seem even bluer. He strode purposefully towards the cafe, his gaze never leaving hers. When he reached her table, he didn't immediately sit. Instead, he simply stood there, a quiet reverence in his eyes. "Elara," he said, his voice a low, warm melody that sent shivers down her spine. "You came." "Liam," she replied, her voice a little breathy. "You knew I would." He finally took the seat opposite her, his presence filling the space with a comforting warmth. "I had a feeling," he admitted, his eyes sparkling. The scarf was a gamble, but a beautiful one. He gestured to the book she had placed on the table beside her. "Did you have a chance to look through it?" "I did," she said, her fingers tracing the embossed leaves. "It's beautiful, Liam, and the forget-me-not, it was such a thoughtful touch. I remembered you saying you loved the symbolism of flowers," he explained. "And I certainly didn't want you to forget me after such a lovely evening." His gaze was direct, sincere, and Elara felt herself melt a little. They talked for hours that morning, the coffee growing cold, the pastries untouched. They spoke of the poems, their shared love for nature, and the quiet beauty of the village. Liam revealed that he was a landscape architect, working on a project to restore a historic garden on the outskirts of the village. "It's a temporary assignment," he said, a hint of wistfulness in his tone, "but I'm making the most of my time here, especially now." His gaze met hers, holding a silent promise. Elara in turn spoke of her work at the botanical garden, her passion for cultivating rare species, and the joy she found in watching things grow. She found herself telling him about her childhood, growing up in a small, plant-filled home, and how her love for botany had blossomed naturally. She rarely shared so much so quickly, but with Liam, it felt effortless, like talking to an old friend. He listened with an intensity that made her feel truly seen. He asked insightful questions, drawing out details she hadn't even realized she wanted to share. There was a gentle curiosity about him, a genuine interest that made her feel cherished. "I'd love to see your garden sometime, Elara," he said, his eyes alight with genuine interest. "I can tell it's a place of great beauty and passion." "I'd love to show you," she replied, a shy smile gracing her lips. "Perhaps tomorrow? I have a particularly vibrant collection of hellebores in bloom." "Perfect," he said, his smile warm and inviting. "Consider it a date." Their next few days unfolded like a series of perfectly composed botanical drawings, each moment adding a new layer of beauty and depth to their burgeoning connection. He visited her cottage, his delight in her garden palpable. He moved through the rows of carefully cultivated plants with a respectful admiration, asking about their origins, their needs, their stories. Elara felt a profound joy in sharing this sacred part of her world with him, and his genuine appreciation only deepened her feelings. He told her about his own passion for transforming neglected spaces into havens of natural beauty, of the challenges and rewards of coaxing life back into forgotten landscapes. He spoke of the importance of sustainability, of creating ecosystems that thrived. They discovered a shared philosophy, a belief in the inherent beauty and resilience of nature, and the quiet power of nurturing growth. One afternoon, he brought her a small, exquisitely carved wooden bird, a tiny wren, its wings outstretched as if in mid-flight. "I saw it at a local artisan's shop," he explained, holding it out to her. "It reminded me of the way you flit between your roses, so light and graceful." Elara's fingers trembled as she took the delicate carving. "It's beautiful, Liam. Thank you." It was another testament to his thoughtfulness, his ability to see and appreciate the small, unique details of her. Their conversation stretched late into the evenings, sometimes over shared meals at her cottage, sometimes simply sitting on her porch swing, watching the stars emerge. They spoke of dreams and aspirations, of fears and past disappointments. Elara found herself opening up about a previous relationship that had left her feeling guarded, a quiet fear of vulnerability that had kept her heart somewhat closed. Liam listened patiently, his hand gently covering hers as she spoke. "It's brave to open your heart again, Elara," he said softly, his thumb stroking the back of her hand. "But I promise to always treat it with care." His touch, his words, were a balm to her old wounds, a silent reassurance that this was different. He, in turn, shared stories of his own, of the nomadic nature of his work, and the longing he sometimes felt for a place to call home, a constant amidst the ever-changing landscapes. "I love what I do," he confessed one evening, gazing out at the moonlit garden, "but it can be a solitary path. I've always hoped to find someone who understands that, who shares a similar appreciation for the quiet beauty of the world." Elara felt a pang of understanding, a recognition of her own solitary life before him. "It sounds like you're searching for your own rooted place," she mused, thinking of her beloved plants. He turned to her, his eyes serious. "Perhaps I've found it, Elara, or at least, I've found a very compelling reason to try and create one." His gaze held hers, a profound depth of feeling passing between them in the moonlit silence. Their days together became a tapestry woven with shared laughter, quiet understanding, and unspoken affection. They explored the winding paths of the village, discovering hidden nooks and charming local shops. They took long walks in the nearby woods, Liam pointing out interesting tree species, Elara identifying wildflowers and fungi. Their hands would often brush, then linger, and soon it became natural for them to walk hand in hand, a comfortable warmth flowing between them. One crisp autumn afternoon, Liam surprised her with a picnic by the river. He had packed a delicious array of artisanal cheeses, fresh bread and fruit, along with a flask of spiced apple cider. As they sat on a soft woolen blanket, the gentle murmur of the river providing a soothing backdrop, he pulled a small sketchbook from his bag. "I started sketching a few days ago," he admitted, a shy smile on his face. "It helps me visualize my projects, but lately, well, I found myself sketching other things." He opened the book, and Elara gasped softly. On the first page was a delicate pencil sketch of her, caught in a moment of quiet contemplation amidst her roses, her hair gently windswept, a thoughtful expression on her face. It was undeniably her, yet it also captured a certain ethereal quality, a gentle strength she hadn't realized she possessed. "Liam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "It's beautiful. You've truly captured something." He flipped to the next page. It was a sketch of her cottage, framed by the climbing roses, bathed in the soft glow of twilight. Another page showed a close-up of a particularly intricate rose bloom from her garden, rendered with exquisite detail. Each drawing was imbued with a quiet affection, a deep appreciation for her world. "I find myself seeing beauty everywhere since I met you," he confessed, his eyes meeting hers, a raw vulnerability in their depths, "and wanting to capture it, to hold on to it." Elara felt her heart swell with an emotion so profound it almost brought tears to her eyes. He saw her, truly saw her, not just the surface but the essence of who she was, and he cherished it. It was a feeling of being utterly, wonderfully understood. Later that evening, as he walked her back to her cottage, the moon a silver sliver in the darkening sky, they paused by her garden gate. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and late-blooming jasmine. "Elara," he began, his voice a low rumble. "This project, it's nearing completion. I'll need to leave in a few weeks." A sudden chill, unrelated to the evening air, snaked through her. She had known, of course, that he was here temporarily, but hearing him say it, confirming the transient nature of his stay, brought a sharp pang of apprehension. She looked up at him, her heart thudding. He saw the flicker of worry in her eyes. "But that doesn't mean anything has to end, Elara," he quickly added, his hand reaching out to cup her cheek, his thumb gently stroking her skin. "I've been thinking a lot. About you. About us." He took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. "I don't know what the future holds for my work, but I know this. I don't want to leave you. I want to find a way to make this work, whatever that means, to find my roots, here with you if you'll have me." Elara's breath caught in her throat. The words she had longed to hear, the unspoken hope that had been blossoming in her heart, were now being spoken aloud. His touch was warm, reassuring, and his eyes held a sincerity that banished any lingering doubts. "Liam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I want that too." A profound relief washed over his face, softening the lines of worry that had briefly etched themselves there. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to respond, his eyes searching hers for confirmation. Elara met his gaze, her own eyes shining with a mixture of joy and a newfound courage. She nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, but enough for him. His lips met hers then, gently at first, a soft inquiry, and then with a deepening tenderness that spoke volumes. It wasn't a kiss of fiery passion but one of profound connection, of shared promises and budding dreams. It was a kiss that tasted of hope, of commitment, and of a future they were now, together, daring to imagine. When they finally broke apart, both a little breathless, the moon seemed to shine brighter, and the air around them hummed with a quiet magic. He still held her face in his hands, his thumbs tracing gentle patterns on her cheeks. "This isn't just a temporary assignment for me anymore, Elara," he murmured, his voice husky. "This village, this garden, and especially you, it feels like home, and I'm going to find a way to stay." Elara leaned into his touch, her heart soaring. The path ahead might still hold uncertainties, but standing here with Liam, beneath the watchful eyes of her beloved garden, she knew that whatever challenges they faced, they would face them together. The story, she realized, was no longer just beginning. It was unfolding, beautifully and bravely, into a future she now knew would be filled with love and endless possibilities. The air hummed with a new kind of magic, a silent promise spoken between them. Liam's fingers, still warm from touching her cheek, traced the line of her jaw before gently lacing with hers. "Stay," she whispered, the word a fragile prayer, an echo of his own sentiment. He squeezed her hand. "I meant it, Elara. My old job, it was good, but it kept me tethered to a life that never felt quite rimming. Now, after seeing this place, I realized what I was missing." He looked around the moonlit garden, his eyes alight. "I'm a landscape architect, Elara. I've spent years designing grand estates and corporate campuses, but my passion has always been in sustainable design, in creating spaces that breathe and nurture, like this one." Elara's breath caught. "You're a landscape architect, Liam? That's incredible. My garden is my life, but I've always dreamed of expanding, of helping others create their own havens. I just never knew how." A slow smile spread across his face, radiating warmth. "Maybe we just found the how for both of us." Over the next few weeks, the how began to take shape, not without its challenges, but always steeped in a shared sense of adventure. Liam made calls, explored options. His old firm was understanding, offering him remote projects initially, a bridge to his new life. But his heart was set on something local, something that allowed him to be present, truly present, in Elara's world. He spent his days learning the rhythms of her life, helping in the garden, not as a guest, but as a partner. He helped her prune the climbing roses, showing a surprising deftness, and suggested improvements to her irrigation system with a thoughtful expertise that blended perfectly with her intuitive knowledge. They'd share coffee on the porch as the sun rose, planning their day, then cook dinner together in her cozy kitchen, the scent of herbs and fresh vegetables filling the air. Elara found herself laughing more, her quiet home now resonating with Liam's deep chuckle and easygoing banter. One blustery afternoon, a local community initiative was announced. The town square, long neglected, was to be reimagined as a vibrant green space. Elara heard about it through her usual garden club channels and, with a hopeful glint in her eye, nudged Liam. "This could be it, Liam. A chance to show them what you can do, what I can do." Liam, though initially hesitant about putting himself forward in a new town, saw the passion in Elara's eyes and the genuine need in the community. Together, they drafted a proposal, a vision for a thriving public garden using native plants, rainwater harvesting, and community plots, a true reflection of Liam's sustainable ethos and Elara's deep connection to the earth. They presented it to the town council, Elara speaking with quiet conviction about the emotional benefits of green spaces, Liam with his professional expertise and detailed plans. Their combined energy was undeniable. The council, charmed by Elara and impressed by Liam's innovative designs, unanimously approved their project. It was a leap of faith for Liam, a full embrace of this new path, and for Elara it was the realization of a long-held dream to share the joy of her garden with her entire community. As spring unfolded, so did their love. The town square project became a symbol of their growing partnership. They worked side by side, Liam directing the landscaping, Elara organizing community planting days, her infectious enthusiasm drawing volunteers from every corner of the town. People began to see Liam not just as Elara's new partner, but as a vital, caring member of their community. His gentle humor and genuine interest endeared him to everyone, especially the elderly ladies of the garden club, who constantly brought them freshly baked goods. One evening, after a particularly fulfilling day of planting a new rose trellis in the square, they sat on Elara's porch swing, the scent of honeysuckle heavy in the twilight air. Liam reached into his pocket. "Elara," he began, his voice a little shaky, "I know we said we'd take things one day at a time, but every day with you feels like coming home. More than that, it feels like I've finally found where I belong." He pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box, the kind a botanist might use to store rare seeds. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a silver ring, delicate and elegant, with a tiny, exquisitely detailed rosebud carved into its surface. Elara gasped, tears pricking her eyes. "Liam, will you let me stay, officially, permanently, in your life, in your heart, and in this wonderful world you've created? Will you marry me, Elara?" Her heart swelled, overflowing with a joy so profound, it took her breath away. There were no grand gestures, no extravagant displays, just the quiet, heartfelt promise of a shared future, rooted in love and nurtured by their shared dreams. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, the cool silver a perfect fit, a tangible symbol of their intertwined lives. Then he pulled her into a tender embrace, a silent vow exchanged beneath the vast, star-dusted sky. The future, once a hazy landscape of solitary contentment for Elara, now stretched out before them, vibrant and full of shared purpose. Liam, the city stranger, had found his roots in her garden and in her heart. And Elara, the woman who had sought solace among her plants, had discovered that the most beautiful bloom of all was the love that blossomed when two souls found their truest home in each other. They spent their lives cultivating not just gardens, but a love that deepened with every season, a partnership that brought beauty and joy to their small town, and a home filled with the gentle rhythm of two hearts beating as one, forever entwined, like the climbing roses reaching for the sun.